Hello everyone, welcome back to the 5th unit of academic writing, vocabulary and grammar for academic writing. This is me Sufna Xavier from the Department of English, Carmel College, Mala. So far we have discussed the expressions and the phrases which should be avoided in an academic writing paper. So today we are going to discuss about some alternative expressions which can be used in an academic paper. Samples for alternative expressions. Contracted form. Instead of contracted forms, we can use full words. For example, instead of using don't, won't, shouldn't, we can use do not, will not, should not. So instead of using contracted forms, shortened forms, we can use the full form or full words. That is do not, will not, should not. When you are writing a serious paper, an article or an article for a journal, you can't use like similar contractions like don't, won't or shouldn't, but you can use do not, will not and should not. Instead of personal pronouns, as in this essay I have argued that, you can write alternative expressions like the following. In this essay, it is argued that. So here the personal pronoun, I have argued that, it is changed like in this essay it is argued that. So avoid using personal pronouns in academic writing. Another example is that from the evidence we can perceive some visible changes in the functioning of special schools. Here I have used the personal pronoun we can perceive. We can write it like this. From the evidence, some visible changes can be noted in the functioning of special schools. So in the first example, I have written it using a personal pronoun we. And in the alternative expression, I have changed it. From the evidence, some visible changes can be noted in the functioning of special schools. So instead of using personal pronouns, we can use alternative expressions. Next one, informal verbs and phrasal verbs. For example, bad, good, go on, put off, find out. In the last class, we have seen that we have to avoid all these informal verbs in academic writing. And instead of these informal verbs, we can use inferior. That is, instead of bad, we can use inferior. Or instead of good, we can say acceptable. Or instead of go on, we can say continue. And instead of put off, we can say postpone. So we have got a lot of alternatives for these informal verbs. Next one, colloquial expressions like sooner or later, get out of hand, beyond doubt, part and parcel of. These are colloquial expressions. When we communicate or when we talk to somebody, we can use all these expressions to make it more interesting. But when you are writing something serious, you can't use all these colloquial expressions in your paper. So instead of using such colloquial expressions, we can say inevitably or definitely or like impediment. Instead of obstacle, we can say impediment. So you have to introduce new alternatives, that is formal alternatives instead of these colloquial expressions. Next one, run-on expressions. Like, if I'm saying I have got apples, oranges, etc. You can't say etc. or such kind of run-on expressions in an academic writing paper, but you have to use conjunctions to connect the last item in the list. For example, learning academic writing will enable you to write essays, reports, dissertations, case studies and so on. That's fine, but you can't use etc. that is considered as something informal or something inferior. So you can't use run-on expressions. Instead of using run-on expressions, you can use conjunctions to connect the last item. Next one, redundant expressions. Instead of using redundant expressions like, that is unnecessary expressions like absolutely, essential or still remains, actual facts, like originally created. So all these things, these words are redundant, unnecessary. So remove the unnecessary part to make it more formal. So essential is fine. You don't have to say absolutely essential. So essential is fine. Or created. Somebody created. That's fine. You don't have to say originally created. If someone is creating something, that is his original idea, his or her original idea. So you don't have to say originally created. So if something is there like that, you have to remove the unnecessary part. The redundant expression should be removed from the writing. Next one, vague expressions, like some sort of thing or stuff. In the train, the passenger fixed their eyes on their stuff. So it's a kind of vague expression. We don't know what kind of stuff it is like that. It is. So you have to use clearer alternatives. When you are writing something, you can't use such vague expressions, but you have to specify the word. Like in the train, the passenger fixed their eyes on their luggage. So here I'm specifying the stuff. It is his luggage. So you can't say stuff or thing in an academic paper. When you are talking to somebody, you can use all these words because there is a chance for clarification. But when you are writing something, there is no chance for clarification. So you have to be clear about ideas. Next one is superlative expressions or intensifiers and words indicating exaggerations. These kind of words should be avoided in an academic paper. And instead of these kind of words, we have to tone down your phraseology. Superlative expressions like perfect, best, worst, most. All these are superlative expressions. So you have to tone down your phraseology, like accomplished or experienced or outstanding. So you have to, or comparatively inferior. So here you're not giving some superlative expression, or you're not exaggerating something. You're saying this is perfect. You can't say that in an academic paper. You can give a comparison, like it is comparatively good, or it is comparatively inferior, or he is an experienced person. So all these are a kind of a formal way of saying something. Next one is racist remarks. Like when you are pointing someone and you are saying nigger or colored or Eskimo or Yankee, Madrasi, Gypsy, all these are racist remarks. You have to avoid all these racist remarks, and you have to use acceptable expressions like African, Pakistani, Asian American, or misrepresented. You can't say deaf and dumb. You can say differently abled. So all these things you have to use acceptable expressions. Or rather than using gypsy, or rather than using Yankee, Madrasi, you can say indigenous people. So we can use some acceptable expressions, but don't use racist remarks. Next one is gender expressions. Chairman or fireman, or like woman photographer, poetess, actress, bachelor, alumni. All these words, they are gender expressions. So you need to include, or you need to add gender inclusive expressions in your writing, like chairperson or photographer, poet, actor. You don't have to say actress. You just have to say actor and poet, or all student, or humankind. Rather than using mankind, you can say humankind, or security guard, principal. All these words are gender inclusive, so you have to be careful about gender. You don't have to use gendered expressions in your paper. Rather than gender expressions, you can use gender inclusive expressions. Next one is personal or judgmental expressions. I'm saying I think or I believe. In my opinion, it is like that. I don't have to state my opinion. Rather than stating my personal opinion, you have to refer to evidence, like as shown in the table. It is like that. This, or considering the result, it can be concluded that, or it is evident from the text that. So here we are referring to some evidence. I'm not stating my personal opinion. So when you are writing something serious, when you are preparing for academic writing, you need to give expressions referring to evidence rather than giving personal or judgmental expressions. Abbreviations like bro for brother, or prof for professor, or TSP for teaspoon, all these are common abbreviations, and you have to use full forms in your academic writing paper. You are not texting somebody, but you are writing something serious, so you need to give the full forms. For example, professor, or you don't have to say ASAP, you have to say as soon as possible. Or DIY, you have to say do it yourself, not DIY. So all these are common abbreviations, but you can't use all these abbreviations in your academic writing. Next one, symbols. Symbols, 3 and 4, or and, the symbol of and. You can't use all these symbols in your academic writing. You have to state it. If you are saying 3, you have to THREE. 3, you have to write it, or you have to give the number in words, not in digits. And if the symbol and, you can't use that symbol, you have to write AND, and. So you can't use symbols, but use words. But if you are writing something related to mathematics or chemistry, definitely you have to use some symbols. That's okay. But when you are writing a piece of idea, a paragraph, you have to give it in words, not in symbols. So these are some of the alternative expressions which can be used in academic writing. With this, we can wind up today's class. Thank you. Have a good day.